How's it going, folks? Recording my first best ball draft in a little bit. Doing another one of the $1 million first prize guarantee underdog tournament. And we got pick number 5 in this one. Should be kind of interesting as Saquon Barkley has fallen down to pretty much the 5 ADP. And a few things about strategy. This is big tournament. So you got weeks 1 through 13 to get through this first pod of 12 players. And then you move on to a winners group for week 14, a winners group for week 15, 16, so on and so forth until the championship. So really are shooting for upside and not safety, which means you can go a little lighter on running backs because you really can't worry too much about if your running backs get hurt. Interesting pick here between Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, and Travis Kelce for me. I'm going to go ahead and take Jonathan Taylor. I like his schedule better than Saquon. I hear Saquon may be limited leading into the season. That's not necessarily the case. That could be untrue. But we still have a lot of time to draft before the season. It's only June 21st when I'm recording this. So, right now, I'm just not drafting Saquon. If the news changes and he's, going to be full go for week 1, I'll just slam a bunch of shares of him once that news breaks. Right now, I would take him exactly where he went in this draft. So I would not take him over Jonathan Taylor or Travis Kelce, but if both of those were off the board. So Sport 8336, that player, he took him at 1-7. That's exactly where I would take him. It's where I have him ranked as well. As far as Jonathan Taylor or Kelce, I have them basically as a tie, but I'm taking Taylor in this draft just because I own quite a bit more Kelce than I do Taylor. Patrick Mahomes at the 1.08 in this draft. Absolutely do not do that. Don't even do that ever. No, not ever. So earliest you can really consider taking Patrick Mahomes is round 3. Round 3 is generally still going to be too early. We have a lot of data now on what round QBs have ended up, being the best to own, and it looks like it's round 6, 7, 8 have been the QBs that have had the highest win percentages the last few years have come from those rounds. It's been a little skewed, right? Because it's been just new guys each year that have kind of been smashing. And I don't know if you can really expect that to continue. So we had Patrick Mahomes 3 years ago, Lamar Jackson 2 years ago, and then Josh Allen 1 year ago that all just friggin' completely crushed. And they all happened to be in rounds 6, 7, and 8 those years, right? Mahomes this year, Lamar's year, he was in those rounds, and then Josh Allen's year, he was in those rounds. So that might be a piece of data that you don't want to overweight. But that said, you don't really need to take QBs before those rounds because other people aren't, right? Other people that are smart and are getting into these drafts really heavy have the same data, and they're also letting QBs fall with the exception of pretty much Mahomes. Sometimes round 5, you got to grab a Lamar or Josh Allen if you want them. But with the exception of Mahomes, you don't really need to take a quarterback before then. And if you want your Mahomes shares, I'm not going to tell you not to have Mahomes shares because he can throw 50 touchdowns in a season. It's obviously in the realm of possibility for him. And he has some decent matchups in the fantasy playoffs, which are really, really important when you have to finish first overall. But don't take your Mahomes shares before round 3. You'll get plenty if you want them in round 3. Unless the guy who took him in round 1 is in your draft. But if you're doing enough of these drafts to be watching this type of video and caring about, your ownership shares and things like that, you can definitely wait until round 3 to consider taking Mahomes. So at the 2-8, we should be getting a really strong player here. A couple players that I kind of have on my eye on to get some extra shares of are Darren Waller is one. And David Montgomery is another one because I just basically don't have any David Montgomery. And I don't. Oh, this is crazy. I wonder if that's the same guy that took. Yeah, okay, that guy just doesn't know what he's doing. That's obvious. So it was the same guy. Just Josh Allen in round 2 as Patrick Mahomes in round 1. So that guy's going to kind of like change this draft a bit, where you may have to take AQB a little bit earlier. But what actually ends up happening in this type of drafts is it's better to just kind of hang out as long as you can and push them later and later. Could have an interesting choice here between like Mixon, Harris, DeAndre Hopkins. All right, so I have not been taking like any shares of Joe Mixon because he goes just too high for me. But I'm definitely going to take one here. So reasons I'm taking Joe Mixon here is one, it's like really difficult to get a pairing of Mixon and Taylor, so it's going to be like fairly unique in these, which is something that you need to build. Is like you want some uniqueness to your roster if you're going to end up being the person to win $1 million over all these friggin' entries, right? And like it's incredibly difficult to get a combo of Jonathan Taylor and Joe Mixon based on their ADPs. So that's why we just smashed Mixon there. Mixon's not a guy I'm very excited about, to be honest. I don't think it's going to go well. I think the interior of the Bengals offensive line is still just a giant, absolute pile of shit. I realize, they got Riley Reef on the outside as a tackle, but he's like just a replacement level player. He's fine. He's like better than what they had as a tackle, right? So like he's going to be improved. But their center tore his Achilles, I believe, week 17. It was Achilles or ACL, one of the two. Severe injury week 17. So their center, who was like playing decent, is out and probably not going to start the year. And their guards last year were absolutely pathetic, and they really haven't done much to upgrade there. So the fact that they've added like one okay tackle, I believe they took a couple players in the draft that may challenge those guards in the later rounds, though, not round 1 or 2, that may challenge. Actually, I think they didn't take one in round 2. They just didn't take Sewell in round 1. So we definitely like the 2 tight ends that are on the board. We like Justin Jefferson. We like Michael Thomas. And then after that, we're probably dropping down to J.K. Dobbins. So it might be tough for us to have to pick between Dobbins and Michael Thomas here. I really, really like J.K. Dobbins. I don't understand why people... Like, to me, he's a round 2 player. But, I just never take him in round 2 because you don't need to take him in round 2. This guy getting Justin Jefferson at the 3-4, that's pretty absurd for him. So, I think we're going to take Michael Thomas over J.K. Dobbins at this point because J.K. Dobbins is actually my number 1 most owned player, period, in all of these. And I don't really have a ton of Michael Thomas. I do like him in round 3. I've been taking so much J.K. Dobbins in round 3 that I don't really get Michael Thomas. And I've also, been taking a lot of round 2 A.J. Brown, round 1 Kelsey. So that's why I've been taking more Dobbins as opposed to Michael Thomas. Because usually I'm, looking for a running back at that point. Because I haven't started with 2 running backs. But this time, we started with 2 running backs and then Michael Thomas. Really liking the start of this team. I like Swift quite a bit too in this round 3 area. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes. Let's see if China Oldham picks a 3rd quarterback here. We will have to kind of watch the scarcity of the quarterbacks. He does, takes Kyler Murray. We will have to watch the scarcity of the quarterbacks in this one, but there's still plenty to go around right now. We would like to get 3 actual starting quarterbacks, and we're not interested much in Justin Fields because it doesn't sound like he has a chance to start week 1, right? And I don't think the upside with the weapons the Bears have is high enough for us to get excited about Justin Fields when he gets in there. He'll be good. But I don't think it's going to win you the league good. So Trey Lance, on the other hand, also doesn't sound like he's going to start week 1, which normally would take the guy right off our radar, right? Problem is the championship of this tournament is week 17, and San Francisco plays Houston week 17. So if Lance is the starter, that could be like, an absolute just monster win you the $1 million prize pool type week for Lance. So he is, I do have him in my pool to draft. If you guys watch my videos last year, like I didn't have Herbert in my pool, and then everyone can say like, you're a moron, look what happened with Herbert. Well, Herbert's win percentage in these leagues really wasn't very high. It was like, a little bit above the average percentage. It was like the average percentage is like 8.3%, and I believe his was like 12%. So he didn't make that much of a difference for you. And he definitely helped. It definitely was better to draft him than to not have drafted him. But, got very lucky with the situation where he got to start earlier. And I actually went back and checked out the stats of teams that drafted both Herbert and Tyrod Taylor to just kind of try and shore up that. So they drafted 3 QBs, right? One other QB and then those 2 guys, because you could get both Taylor and Herbert late. So it was a strategy people were using. And the win percentage for those teams was atrocious. It was just awful. Terrible. Probably based on the fact that even though Herbert was very good and put up very good stats, if you go look at his game logs, he had a 4-week period where he threw 13 touchdowns, which is fucking insane. And then he kind of was just a guy after that. So, yeah, China Oldham has now taken 4 quarterbacks. Still not anything we really need to keep our eye on for the time being. This is going to drop players into our lap. It was very, very, very nice. So with our pick, we could be looking at DJ Moore, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Julio. Almost for certain going to take a running back here. Oh my God. Yeah, I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to say it out loud. But we're just going to go ahead and take J.K. Dobbins in round 4 here. That's going to have to clean my pants off after this draft. Not going to lie, there's going to be pants needing to be cleaned because that's never happened in one of these drafts, and the level of how excited I am cannot really be put into words. So yeah. When we were deciding between Dobbins and Thomas, we definitely thought there was a 0% possibility that we would be getting both of them. Now I'm really glad I took Michael Thomas in round 3. So I kind of wanted to take David Montgomery there just to get a share, but one of the reasons I did not is he shares a bye week with Joe Mixon, which is not that big a deal. But I want to leave us open to only drafting 4 running backs. And if you have 2 running backs with the same bye week, you kind of need to draft 5. Because, your floor doesn't matter that much, but you do need to have some sort of floor if something were to happen to one of your guys short term, right? So we're not looking at a floor for the longer term. If the guy busts his ACL week 1, then we're not worried about it. But say the guy sits out 2 games with a concussion or something, we want to be able to weather that storm, have some sort of floor in a situation like that. So, people are just not drafting running backs in this draft. This is pretty interesting. 28 quarterbacks taken. It's not really. There's 4. But one guy has 4 quarterbacks, and people are just nah, bruh. I'm all set on running backs. We really don't need to take a running back here, so if Josh Jacobs or David Montgomery is there in round 5, I'm going to have to consider it. That would be kind of a nightmare, but obviously it'd be great. It'd be a great nightmare to have Deontay Johnson, huh? So T. Higgins is the only non-running back I would really have much consideration for here. There's Kenny Golladay too. So do we want David Montgomery? T. Higgins. This is a tough pick. I'm going to take T. Higgins as my second wide receiver. We now have 2 Bengals, which is quite disgusting. It's something we definitely not want. These people back here getting David Montgomerys and Josh Jacobs at the end of round 5 and being around 6 is absurd. I felt the drop-off after Higgins at wide receiver was too bad. Golladay is definitely he was in the same tier. Ayuk So we had 2 guys. Then that was a tier break for me after those 2. So I do like Galladay and Ayuk quite a bit that are available. Did what's his face? Oh, it's just pick now. So Herbert went in round 5. This is like quarterbacks are just going earlier now because of this guy taking 4. Let's see if he takes a 5th. Maybe he's planning to take 18 quarterbacks and destroy us all. If that is his plan, we do need to take quarterbacks earlier than we normally would. Yeah, he's definitely going to pick all quarterbacks. I just think he doesn't know how the scoring system works. It's either that or he's an asshole that's just firing $25 into the abyss to fuck up other people's drafts. It actually doesn't fuck up your draft if you just got to like pay attention, get your great values, like getting Dobbins in round 4, stuff like that. You do need to be aware of it. So this is a draft, since we drafted Michael Thomas, we're actually going to be quite interested in getting us a Jameis Winston share, since I think Thomas hits ceiling with Winston, does not hit ceiling with Taysom Hill, so we don't want to draft Taysom Hill and Michael Thomas on the same team. Even though, like, it's a combination, and it's fine. Like, really, if you have Michael Thomas, you want Winston. You don't want Taysom Hill. Because the nature of Taysom Hill starting lowers Michael Thomas's upside. Which should make sense to everyone, but... So Winston is at least a guy you can usually get kind of late, which means we can get him at least kind of middle in this draft. Josh Jacobs off the board. Still some decent running backs out there. Javonte Williams has kind of been shooting up the board since there's been some rumors he could start week 1. I'm not too sure that that's a real thing, but I assume Melvin Gordon will start week 1. Yeah, there's also been a lot of Denver rumors linked to Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson. If they were to get one of those guys, I think that would give an edge to Melvin Gordon, because the offense would be ready to rock and roll, and basically the only thing that they would be worried about is protecting their quarterback, which means Gordon's going to have a lot more experience pass blocking than Javonte Williams. Happy to see Odell Beckham go off the board. That's not someone we're interested in. We're still not really too panicked on a quarterback, though we do have to keep in mind that there's 5 or 6 off the board already. I would like to pick a wide receiver or TJ Hawkinson at my pick. So I'm either taking Hawkinson, Ayuk, Claypool, or Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is a guy I do not have many shares of, so it's kind of intriguing. Kind of hoping Brandon Ayuk does not get taken this pick. He already has an injury in camp, which is kind of annoying. But I'm not to the point where I want to limit my shares of him because of it yet. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take Ayuk. So keep in mind now we have Michael Thomas and Brandon Ayuk. They both have bye week 6. Not something you need to panic on. You can definitely have 3 wide receivers at the same bye week, especially if you're picking, 7 or 8 wide receivers. Preferably, you want to be picking 8 if you're going to have 3 at the same bye week. But it is something where we should be shying away from any week 6 wide receivers if it's close, right? If we're in the same tier and we're like, I don't really care, this guy or that guy, and the guy's bye week 6, we should take the other person. Jets wide receivers are week 6. Saints, 49ers. So it could keep us away from an Elijah Moore share, which is one that I like to get some shares of. As far as our next pick, we're kind of open to take like whatever comes our way. With Hawkinson off the board, tight end doesn't really intrigue me that much. I don't think I saw what. So China Oldham finally took a non-quarterback after taking 5 quarterbacks. Yeah, this guy. I mean, it's unfortunate, but this guy basically has 0% chance to win. So he only gets to play 1 quarterback a week. There's just the amount of dead capital weekly is just going to be incredible on his team. So whatever you do, don't do what that guy did. This is very, 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 very bad. He's basically a buy in this pool. So we've started off with 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers. Liking the team so far. A little nervous on Ayuk with the having sustained an injury already, but it's so early in the preseason. If it was an August injury, I would be more concerned. He's a guy I definitely want some shares of because, again, Week 17 Houston matchup is just monstrous. Can really, really win you your league. Interesting. DJ Chark still on the board. It's James Robinson, some running backs. I really haven't been taking much Chark. I'll grab up a Chark. Cool with that. Tight end next up is Dallas Goedert on the board for ADP. No real interest there. Do like Tyler Higbee quite a bit, and he's coming around. I probably still would just punt further at tight end. Well, we'll see. I really wouldn't want to be taking Higbee with my next pick, but it's a consideration. The pick after my next pick, more of a consideration there. I haven't been taking too much Chark, but I just think he goes kind of too high. And in this draft, obviously, position players got pushed down a bit by the amount of quarterbacks taken. Can't think about taking our 4th running back and just being all set at running back, being all done. Some guys I like to take as my 4th running back are James Robinson, Damian Harris, Leonard Fournette, A.J. Dillon, Zach Moss, Michael Carter. I really haven't got much Michael Carter just because I'd rather take Fournette or A.J. Dillon. Those guys go later. I think they have, way higher upsides and similar floors. I don't think the Jets' run game is going to be a big thing to own, and I think it's going to be a committee that involves, probably more than 2 people, which is going to be a fucking nightmare. Laviska Shenault is still there when it's our pick. It could be interesting to try to take him and get a Chark, Shenault, and Trevor Lawrence stack going. But that's not overly likely to happen. It goes Goddard, so Higbee is definitely a reasonable pick at our pick, so we'll consider that. I'd be a little bit more inclined to take one of the running backs than Higbee, just kind of punt tight end. So right now I'm considering Higbee, Shenault, James Robinson, Leonard Fournette. Those are kind of the top guys on my board. I believe Fournette's still available. Zach Moss. Maybe Fournette is not available. No. Looks like somebody took Fournette, so he's not on the board. James Robinson, huh? This is awfully late to get him. Could go for Visca and try and see if we can get Trevor Lawrence the next round. Alright. I'm down with it. So now we have 2 week 7 and 2 week 6 wide receivers. James Robinson was the other guy I was considering right there, and then Higbee was kind of my next pick after those guys. So I'm going to kind of hope that Trevor Lawrence makes it to our next pick. So we might end up going 5 running backs in this draft because we might end up having to take 2 weaker ones as this goes on. There's not really a whole bunch of guys left that I would want as like my 4th running back where I'm just not going to take another one. And I'm hoping to not be picking a running back next pick because I'm hoping to be picking Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence goes, then we're definitely open back up to picking a running back. Melvin Gordon and Zach Moss, I think, are very nice picks still. Somehow Higbee were to still be there when we pick, that'd be great. Ryan Tannehill, like naked without stacking pieces, is just fine. Like he's probably going to be a top 12 QB almost for sure. Really liking the way this team has fallen for us so far. Zach Moss off the board. So like Rojo, Melvin Gordon, AJ Dillon are kind of like the last running backs where I'm into just holding on to 4. Trey Lance off the board is kind of annoying, so we can't pair him with Ayuk now. But he had the same bye week as Jameis Winston, so now we're just even more interested in Jameis Winston late. Interesting. All right. The way quarterbacks have flown off the board, I don't really want to risk dropping Lawrence. So taking Lawrence out of Tannehill and Stafford's probably isn't really something you want to be doing that often, but like this is the one case where you want to do that is to sure up you're going to get a triple stack there with what in theory are his 2 top receivers. Obviously, Marvin Jones could take a dump on one of Visca or Chark. I think those 2 guys are more talented, but Marvin Jones has been around and has produced, so he definitely could end up the 2 or even 1 on that team for all we know. From the sounds of it, it sounds like DJ Chark is just like not that much in the plans. It seems to be like they're fine just playing out the season with Chark and just letting him hit free agency and seeing what happens. So it's possible that Chark could kind of end up being the one out, which would be strange just because he's, highest ADP of those guys. So you would think that wouldn't happen. So I do have some interest in a running back if Melvin Gordon or A.J. Dillon are on the board when I pick. A.J. Dillon I really like. I have completely a different thought on his season's going to look like to 90% of the fantasy community, so I could definitely be like terribly wrong, but I see him as a guy that's going to have a pretty decent defined role every week and a chance to be the hot hand and have some big weeks. And I think that for me, Aaron Jones is being overdrafted. Now, some people are really excited for Aaron Jones because Jamal Williams is out of the way. It'll create more, opportunities for him to catch passes, and that boom, Aaron Jones is the lead back, A.J. Dillon is the backup. Rock and fucking roll. That's what a lot of people think. I do not think that. I think A.J. Dillon was drafted in the second round. They let Aaron Jones go to free agency, right? They could have just stopped that from happening if they wanted to. But they were perfectly fine being like, Aaron Jones, if you want to peace out, we've got this guy that we gave, a game to start, and he fucking rolled for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if you want to go off to greener pastures, go for it, buddy. And, Aaron Jones came back. And I do expect Aaron Jones 100% to be the best running back in Green Bay. I just expect A.J. Dillon to have an actual role that is not I'm the backup, I expect him to have, like a Gus Edwards plus role. Gus Edwards plus more of the chance to have a hot hand and get the lead amount of carries that game. Not be the lead guy, not become the number 1. But, you saw the one game where Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon played together last year that A.J. Dillon had the hot hand and got 20-something carries, and going to take Melvin Gordon. Aaron Jones got like 9 carries. So. The reason why we're taking Melvin Gordon there is I have like way less ownership on Melvin Gordon. This round 10 price tag is just absolutely fantastic. If he was to hold off Javonte and keep Javonte into more of a backup role, that would just be insane value. How likely does it happen? I don't think it's super likely, but I have a ton of A.J. Dillon. He's my second most owned running back after J.K. Dobbins, and I do not have much Melvin Gordon. So With Melvin Gordon being our fourth running back, I am perfectly fine with killing running back. One thing I will keep an eye on is if AJ Dillon still isn't taken when it's our next pick, I'm going to get a little tempted to just go 5 running backs then, just because how much I like him. But we don't have a single tight end yet, but that's fine. We're just going to punt tight end. Kind of decided that earlier. Don't mind getting like an Evan Ingram or a Troutman or some fucking schmoes at tight end. Do like Irv Smith a bit, but I think he's kind of overrated. Sounds like their coaching staff is just like, yeah, he's a dude. He's a dude. Their coaching staff does not sound at all excited about him. This could be really interesting for me if AJ Dillon is there. Nice. First time I've been happy to get sniped in quite a while, just because it like made our choices much easier. So Mike Gesicki, huh? I guess we'll do that. Guy I don't have a ton of ownership on. Had some pretty decent chemistry with Tua Tagovailoa. Definitely didn't say that right. Last year, he's like a big hit or miss guy. He has big games and he fucking vanishes. So he's a dude. Tua so far sounds like he's kind of stunk in practice, but people are overweighting that one practice where he threw 5 interceptions. Still not what you want to hear. I did hear someone smart say something smart about Tua today that I kind of opened my eyes and I went, yeah, that's kind of true. So they were saying like his number one attribute is accuracy, where that's not that great of a number one attribute. Because like a majority, not all, but a majority of good quarterbacks in the NFL have good accuracy, right? It's like, what else do you have? And basically when you hear people talk about Tua, it's like they don't get to like, what else? They're like, oh, well, he's got good accuracy. His arm's like mediocre-ish. He has some athleticism, can run some TDs in. But, he uses it more around the goal line to get in, kind of like, Ryan Tannehill does. He's not using a ton. And also Dak Prescott. That kind of usage in the run game for Tua, where he's going to use it more when he gets near the goal line to find a way to score touchdowns. So I have kind of my eye on the 2 tight ends here. I have Ingram and Troutman. I'm not going to take another running back in this draft, so we're just going to go with our 4. Wide receiver, Rager, Paris Campbell, they're just kind of like the next whole group of people. Is not that much different than those guys to me. Denzel Mims, the guy I got to like stop drafting because I have a ton of them. It sounds like shit is going real sour for him in camp, like he might not even be a starter. Kind of would like to get Troutman here to set up a Saints stack with Jameis Winston. Troutman's another guy. If you're drafting Troutman, you'd rather have Jameis Winston than Taysom Hill because you get that ceiling. We're just going to take Troutman here, and then we've got tight end done. Not going to take any more tight ends. So we're going to start looking for stack options. Obviously, we kind of have our mind on Jameis Winston for the future. You don't want to like get too like locked into that because like sometimes people just take a guy like way before you think they're going to take him, and then you're like dick in your hand, like what the fuck just happened. So, but you also don't want to like let it leave your mind. Like we do have this plan with this guy, and we also need to be prepared to adjust if that plan goes badly. So the only other guy we have as a stack piece right now is Tua with Mike Gesicki, because we drafted Trevor Lawrence and Ayuk. Higgins quarterbacks are already been taken in this draft, Burrow and Lance. So we would kind of have interest in a quarterback that has some later stacking abilities, like guys who weapons go after they go. Like, I know Ruggs went already, but you can usually get Brian Edwards and Derek Carr pretty easily. You can usually get like one of the Indy guys and Wentz, but I think all of the Indy guys are pretty much taken at this point, with the exception of Paris Campbell. I think, yeah, Pittman and T.Y. Hilton already went off. Sam Darnold. Round 13, Sam Darnold, brother. Yeah. Don't take round 13 or round 13, Sam Darnold. Terrible pick. He did pair him with Terrence Marshall, so at least maybe he's got like a big stack going there. Oops. He has Christian McCaffrey, who's kind of like a semi-stack piece there. His team's actually not looking too bad, other than, third RB, Zach Moss, no fourth RB at this point. It's not really how I roll, but it's not the worst. What do we have interest in for wide receivers? Paris Campbell, Christian Kirk. Wide receiver is nasty. I was hoping to take Paris Campbell and then pray that Wentz made it back to us so we could get that stack, but that didn't happen. Still going to take Paris Campbell. He was like a tier above the rest of these wide receivers for me. I actually have Mims ranked higher right now, but I have to adjust my rankings. He's not even working with the ones with the Jets, so I also have like a high percentage of Mims from the early off season, and I just basically can't draft him anymore. If news changes and it sounds like he is going to be a starter for the Jets, which you would assume was going to happen, but I mean, it looks like it might be Elijah Moore and Corey Davis on the outside and Jamison Crowder in the slot, and Denzel Mims having to work his way into a starting role. So I figured it would be, Mims and Davis on the outside and Moore in the slot, kind of fighting it out with Crowder and eventually Moore taking over. But it sounds like Moore has just been by far the best guy in their camp, wide receiver. So quarterback is something we want to consider with our next pick. Could go with like Baker, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Daniel Jones. I would take all those guys even before considering Winston. Might consider Winston with the pick after. You can get some decent late stacking with Daniel Jones because you can usually pick up a Kadarius Toney or Darius Slayton. Those guys tend to go kind of late. Might be a little willing to reach on Winston at my pick, just because I really want to shore up that Saints stack. So we still have some picks before 7 more picks. So we'll see how many quarterbacks go off the board and which quarterbacks they are. Our wide receiver group is looking pretty nice. Michael Thomas, T. Higgins, Ayuk, DJ Chark, Shenault, Paris Campbell. Gesicki and Troutman is pretty weak, but, we kind of planned that. Once the big tight ends were off the board, we're like, all right, we're punting tight end. I don't really have too many tight end punt teams, so that's punted tight end teams. So that was quite appealing to me. Yeah, Fitzpatrick's going off the board. Like Jarwin's a guy I literally don't have a single share of. Kind of annoying that I don't. I just don't know what to do with that situation. I think Dalton Schultz played well enough to get touches. It's highly annoying. Okay, so Daniel Jones went. So we are going to basically be forced to take Winston if this pick is not Winston. This pick very well could be Winston, and then we are in a world of trouble. Okay, at least that didn't happen to us. That would have been quite bad. All right, so we got double stacks for Winston and Lawrence. Really isn't too many starting quarterbacks left because of the way that one dude took 5 quarterbacks early. So, like, basically, if Ben, Carr, and Goff are all off the board for our next pick, that's not good. Because I do not want Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock or Jimmy Garoppolo. And I do try to draft 3 quarterbacks. I think with these guys down here having like some of these teams have like 1 quarterback, you've got to think that they would start to take these guys. So like Ben is somebody we don't even want to take because he shares a bye week with Trevor Lawrence, and you really do not want 2 quarterbacks in the same bye week. So we're basically hoping one of Carr or Jared Goff gets to us. Yeah, that felt as disgusting to say as it sounded to you. So Glenneration definitely needs to take a quarterback. If he does not, he is going to be fucked. So this league could be quite good for us because we could end up with he takes Ben. It's perfect for us, but if he didn't take a quarterback there, he could just got completely shut out of even having like a second quarterback that can do anything. Because the only guys really like left that I feel at all good about taking is like Carr and Goff, and it's not that I like those guys. It's just that I think they'll probably be starters for the season, right? Whereas like Cam Newton, the last 3 games of the starter if he plays bad. Deshaun Watson probably going to be suspended for most of the year, if not all the year. Mac Jones going to have to fight the job away from Newton. The Denver guys, they're just not very good. All right, so definitely nice. Definitely prefer Derek Carr to Goff, so that was great for us. Great. Carr has been like pretty underrated. I think he was like quarterback like 14 or something last year in fantasy. So he's been underrated for fantasy. So only thing we have left to pick is wide receivers. We can hope to get lucky and get Bryan Edwards to go with our Derek Carr, create a 2-stack there. Pretty pleased with how this draft has gone so far. Still have like 3 more picks to go, huh? Feels like kind of a lot. We don't necessarily have to take, Bryan Edwards with our next pick. There's like some wide receivers on the board that I think are still quite a bit better. Christian Kirk, Kadarius Toney, Crowder, Sterling Shepard. I think are all probably better picks than Bryan Edwards, but we do have a little interest in shoring up that stack. Christian Kirk's a guy I also have. So is Kadarius Toney. I have a ton of ownership of both those guys. Really like where they go. So probably not going to take one of them over Bryan Edwards, that is. I would be fine taking one of them if Bryan Edwards is not available. But when you're like going to kind of take somebody in the range where you don't really like taking them, like I don't really like taking Bryan Edwards that much where he goes, so I should do it when I have Derek Carr, so at least I get maximum benefit if Bryan Edwards ends up breaking out and being what we thought he could be. Looking back, I think the value we got on Troutman was pretty bad, and maybe we shouldn't have taken him there. We had it in my mind that I was going to take Jameis Winston, but I think the value of that pick was quite poor. Seeing guys like Kmet go this round, I'd much rather have Kmet this round than Troutman the round that we took him. So we're going to take Bryan Edwards, I suppose. Kind of about that pick. We do at least have 1 stack piece now for all 3 quarterbacks. Probably not going to take any more Raiders wide receivers. Like Hunter Renfrow is just like too low ceiling. I mean, we do have a little interest in Renfrow if it were the final round, but he's usually not available in the final round. So if he was available then, I might grab him as a stack piece, but he's pretty unexciting. I'd rather have a guy like, Valdez Scantling, Slayton, KJ Hamler that are going to get you those like longer type touchdowns. This dude drafted 7 running backs. I believe Goff went off the board and he has 1 quarterback. This is just a disaster for this guy. Oh my god. This guy's team is just an atrocity. So he has Kirk Cousins, no other quarterback. There's no quarterbacks left that you really want to be drafting. I mean, there's ones you can. Then even his running backs, he's got 7 of them, but it's like Derrick Henry and a bunch of crapola. Gainwell's a guy I don't even have my player pool to be drafted. I'm pretty much taking all my running backs by round 10, and then I'm either taking 4 or 5 running backs by round 10, 11, and then I'm all done with running back. I do not want those guys that, I know those handcuff guys are attractive, right? Because you're the ceiling if the starter gets hurt. But don't forget, you have to win this 12-man pod in 13 or 14 weeks. You don't have the whole 17 weeks. So, each week that guy gets just a flat-out 0 while you're waiting for the starter to get hurt, you think it's not that bad because, I only have to start, 2 running backs or whatever. But having a 0 is you just have no upside there, right? Oh, sorry, my pick again. Tony or Sterling Shepard? I'm going to take Sterling Shepard only because I have way less ownership of him. Pretty excited about that. I didn't actually expect either of those players to be there, Shepard or Tony, when I picked Josh Palmer. So we got just 1 pick left. Really, really like the way this draft has fallen for us. Sterling Shepard in round 17 is fantastic. Fantastic value. So who we got an eye on for our final pick? Don't mind, any of these top 4 dudes. Eskridge is a little interesting. I like Nico Collins quite a bit. Marcus Callaway is a nice dude to take a shot on if you have a same stack, but I don't like to stack more than 2 pieces. It's shown to have a negative win percentage over time. So I like a quarterback and 2 of his weapons or 1 of his weapons. I steer away from 3. Saw pretty big negative win percentages on teams that had that, and I believe the reason why is a combination of if that team just does nothing that day, now that's 4 guys you're doing nothing, which is terrible. And also that bye week is really, really strained, right? Because there's 4 guys just from that one team that are on that bye week. So I think it leads you to make some suboptimal decisions in other rounds and things like that when you're desperate to not be getting too many people with the same bye week. So we still have interest in Tony, Amari Rodgers, Nico Collins, Dwayne Eskridge. Kind of all rookies. All rookies. Fairly annoying if all 4 went off before our pick. Byron Pringle is not a guy I'm interested in. Sammy Twatkins is not a guy I'm interested in. Nobody down here that I really have been grabbing a bunch of shares of where I'm this is my secret super late guy. Someone just drafted Tim Tebow. I mean, maybe Tebow will do some shit. You never know. Excellent. I'm going to take Nico Collins here. I'd be pretty excited about that pick. I do like him quite a bit more than Amari Rodgers and Dwayne Eskridge. I think that Nico is likely going to be the sort of alpha for the Texans. Brandon Cooks is multiple 1,000-yard receiver, so it's kind of ridiculous to say a rookie will be the alpha. But he's the big body type of guy. Cooks has kind of always been a beta type role guy. So that's how I mean that. Not necessarily that he'll be the best, but that he'll be used in the way that alphas are usually used by the team. I think he could be the top guy used that way. So review the team real quick. We got Trevor Lawrence, Winston, Derek Carr. Not bad. Not fantastic. And Jonathan Taylor, Mixon, Dobbins, Gordon. It's a pretty fantastic group if you're only doing 4 running backs. Michael Thomas, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, Paris Campbell, Brian Edwards, Sterling Shepard, Nico Collins. I absolutely love this wide receiver group. 8 deep, all of them having chances to have pretty good size roles on the teams. And at tight end, we've got Goosicki, his nickname because of all the times he gets 0, and Troutman. Tight end, we don't love it. All right, that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching.